Started streaming. What's up, everyone? Boy, I haven't been on in 2 weeks. I think. Yeah, 2 weeks. I was in Los Angeles last week, FYI. Had some really great, made some great videos. Those of you that have been watching me on Instagram, and if you're not watching me on Instagram, Rick Beato 1, follow me on Instagram, but I did a video with Tosin Abasi, Misha Mansour from Periphery, and Tim Henson from Polyphia. I had dinner with Joni Mitchell, which was amazing. I'll be making a video about that. I saw my good friend Vinny Caluta, who I haven't seen Vinny, so it's probably been a year or so. Anyway, so there's a lot of, I made a lot of content. I did my video with Tim Pierce, a dear friend. Actually, I did a couple videos with Tim. Those will be coming out. The discount code for today's live stream is RB500, 60% off my Beato book, Instagram 700-page PDF bundle, and 40% off the ear training course that you're going to want to take advantage of these things after I answer your questions. Okay, so I put it out on Instagram yesterday, questions. I'll be answering questions from the chat here, and I got about, no lie, it's like 10,000 questions, okay? It's ridiculous. I just kept scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. So I got them right here. So we're going to start with the first one. I thought these are just kind of random things here. How to use a major seventh tastefully. I thought, that's kind of an interesting question. Okay, so when we talk about major seventh, you see the keyboard at the bottom. So you got C major 7 right there. Okay, that's a major 7. Well, in close position like that, it sounds actually pretty boring. If I put A in the bass, it sounds a little better because it becomes an A minor 9, right? That would be a way to use it tastefully. But there's other ways. Like if you take out the third and you play it 1, 5 major 7, I think it sounds a lot better. Okay, so just taking out the third there, or maybe even putting the third down on the bass, right? Having an inversion like that. But I think that major 7th chord without the third is good. Major 7 sus 4, one of my favorite ones. Once again, that would be more like this would be an A Aeolian chord, okay? That would be a major 7 sus 4. You could do a sus 2 also. That's another great sound. I could put C major 7 sus 2 over F or over C. A much, much richer sound. That's actually a great question. In closed position here, it's cool for if you're playing lines. It's cool linearly, but doesn't sound that good as a straight voicing. Sounds kind of boring. It sounds even worse in the guitar, actually. Okay, best way to learn ear training. Well, actually, I was kind of demonstrating some of the things. I have an ear training course. That's probably the best way. But what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to hear any kind of chord voicing. The first thing is to be able to match pitch, right? So if I be able to just sing the pitch, okay? That's just basic stuff. Ba, okay, da, okay, so da, da, da. So that would be a C Lydian triad, I call that. 1 sharp 4 5. Being able to hear that, and then once again, if I go ba, right, da, da. So actually, listening to a chord, whatever it is, and being able to isolate the notes in the chord is probably the most important thing to be able to do. The more dissonant the chord becomes, the more difficult it is to do. Also, the more more notes in the chord, obviously, the more difficult it is to do. If you have a chord voicing like this, so you take this first one, da, 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 okay? Now that would be a D major chord, add 4, but if I put B and F sharp in the bass, you get a totally different sound. Then it becomes developing you're going to get sick of me saying this, your vocabulary of recognized sounds, right? So that's the thing, is like you want to develop a vocabulary of things that you recognize instantly. When I hear this, oh, that's a major triad. I think my keyboard just fell over. Yeah, that's a major triad with the added fourth, okay? And if you see it here, that would be a major triad, another one, but in a different key. That's an A. So you got that. It could be this. Anytime I hear that, you don't have to know what one it is. You just have to be able to recognize it, right? Or if you hear this, oh, that's an add 9 chord. Da, 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 da. Right? So that's F add 9. That could be G add 9. Doesn't matter. You just know it's an add 9 chord, right? First things you do, recognize major chords, minor chords, diminished chords, augmented chords. My ear training course actually goes through all these things, right? So it starts out with basic pitch matching, recognizing intervals, ascending, descending, played either, that's a harmonic interval, right? Played separately, or that's a melodic interval, or a harmonic interval is played together, okay? Harmonic, melodic, melodic, harmonic, okay? Like a harmony, think of it like that. Okay, so that's the best way to learn ear training, is to go through a particular method. You begin by learning pitch matching, recognize, being able to sing chords back, just isolate the notes of chords that people would play for you, or that if you get my ear training course, it'll go through those things, okay? Next question, how to identify a key change? Wow, this is actually a great thing. Okay, so typically what you want to look for are things like dominant seventh chords. Okay, let's say I've got a progression F minor 7. We'll do like a B flat minor 7, E flat 7, A flat major 7. I'm doing like a little bit more complicated. D flat major 7. Then I go D minor 7, G 7, C major 7. Okay, let's say we take a little basic chord progression like that. Okay, when it starts out, I'm like, what key am I in? Well, the first thing you do is you look for dominant chords. This is E flat 7. So I go, oh, there's a dominant chord there. And then I scan the thing. Oh, here's a dominant chord here. When I say dominant, I mean just a straight seventh chord. They can only come from one key. Okay? E flat 7 is from the key of A flat major. Okay, it's the 5 chord in A flat major. So if I know that this is the 5 chord in A flat, wait, let me write this. Oh, I got a new eraser, by the way, for those of you that were wondering. I ordered some new erasers. It's weird. It's got felt on it. It's very strange. So this is a 5-7 chord right there, right? This is going to be a 5-7 chord. Now, this is a 5-7 chord in the key of A flat. Well, let's see if the other chords match A flat. F minor 7, yeah, that's the 6 chord in A flat major. So I'm going to write this. A flat major, 6 minor 7. This is the 2 chord. This is the 1 chord, 1 major 7. This is the 4 chord, 4 major 7. Now here, G7 is the 5 chord in the key of C. Are the other 2 chords around it in the key of C? Yes, that's the 1 chord, that's the 2 chord. 2, 1, and we'll denote the change of key right there with the C major. Okay, so that's the quickest way to spot key changes, is look for dominant chords. Okay, if you have an isolated chord that's out of key, that's a dominant chord, it could be a secondary dominant. Okay, if I had, let's say, oh man, this eraser is bad. Anybody that ever wants to buy me a present or something, don't get these kind of erasers. I can't believe I bought these erasers. Billy, it's a bad eraser. So let's say I had a D minor 7, A7, D minor 7, G7, C major 7, or C, doesn't matter. This A7 chord is a dominant chord, but it's actually a 5-7 of 2. This is the 2 chord, 5-7 of 2. We call that back cycling, to the 2 chord, to the 5 chord, to the 1 chord. Okay? So in this case, this would just be a secondary dominant. So you always want to look around to the chord and see if the other chords related to that dominant chord are from that other key. But when I go to this A7, I'm like, okay, are the chords around it from A? No, they're actually still in the key of C. Right? So I know it's a 5 of 2. Okay? So that's secondary dominant for you. Okay. Let's see here. What mode is best for soloing over minor keys? Great question. There's many different modes. It really depends on what flavor you want to have, right? Because all the modes have different sounds. Okay, so Dorian has a kind of a bright sound. Okay, Aeolian has a different sound because that flat six, like that. If you do Phrygian, way darker sound. Beautiful. Phrygian, Aeolian, Dorian. Right, Billy? So it really depends on on what you want to say in your solo, right? If I want something that sounds kind of bright and minory, I'll play Dorian. If I want a little bit darker and melancholy, I'll play Aeolian, because Aeolian has that flat six, right? That flat six. That is that flat six has just a really dark sound. I call it kind of like the sad blues sound, right? If you want a really dark sound, Phrygian is great. If you want a kind of a brighter sound, you could go with more mysterious film noir. You go with melodic minor. That's a kind of that James Bond sound. That sounds really cool. More of a jazz sound though, melodic minor. Okay, it's got the major seventh in it. So really depends on what things you want to get across the listener. Now, if you play multiple modes on there, it's called modal mixture. Okay, that simply means that you're mixing different modes over the same chord. Okay, so if you have D minor 7 or D minor chord, playing D Aeolian, D Phrygian, D Dorian, D melodic minor would be modal mixture, going from one to the next. That's a great question. Next one, differences between parallel major and minor. Okay, so parallel major, you have two different types of things. You have relative major. Let's just talk about that. Relative major minor. So let's say you're in the key of C. The relative minor would be A minor. Okay? Same notes as C major, but starting on A. Okay? The parallel, and vice versa. The relative major of A minor is C major. The parallel would be C minor. Okay, that's parallel minor. Parallel major to C minor is C major. Okay, has the same tonic. That's those are the differences there. Hold on. I think I know my frame rate is not quite right. Again, I'm getting that message. I don't get it, Billy. So look okay though? Looks fine, right?
Looks fine.
Okay. These things are all in my book, Parallel Majors, Parallel Minor. I saw a lot of questions on negative harmony. Okay, these are for people that are Jacob Collier fans or Steve Coleman fans. I actually have a great video on negative harmony if you want to search it on my channel, but negative harmony is in my Beato book. And understanding parallel majors and minors. You have to understand parallel major and minor to understand negative harmony. That's kind of the first step towards that. So, discount code RB500. Let's see here. Where can you go from F major 7 over E? I just thought that was such an interesting question, right? So F major 7 over E, that could be this chord here. Okay, so I've got F major 7. There's your major 7. That's really the E. So where could you go from there? I could go there to there. That would be kind of standard. I could go to this. Oh, that's so beautiful. And then maybe there. I like that, right? You could go from You go there. So I started in F major. I did the walk down to F over E. You go. That would be more standard. And if you wanted to go to a kind of a different place, so I did this. I did F major, F over E, using it more for the passing chord. That's kind of nice. And then where did I go there? I went to this. That's a real beautiful modulation there. So there's many places you can go. I like to think about the bass motion. That was my tritone bass motion. I think is cool. I could go to. Oh, wow, that sounds good. Now I used the same tonic. I used E, right? But I went from F major 7 to E, F major 7 over E to E minor 9/11. It sounded like I was going to a totally different place there, right? You just hear that. Listen again. Billy, does that sound like it's going to a totally different tonic? Yes, right?
Yeah.
It does, but it's the same. Right. Same thing, right? So that's a cool sound right there. That's many possibilities. That's actually a really cool question. How can I hear? Next question. How can I start thinking in modes, hearing, and visually? We have to recognize the sound of modes, right? Once again, this is your vocabulary of recognized sounds. Okay, this is what I do in my ear training course. I teach people to recognize sounds, and I start with all the different triads, not just major, minor, diminished, augmented, but sus4, Lydian, sus2, Phrygian, right? You could do sus4 flat 5. And in addition to those, then starting to recognize those same chords, those same triads, but with added sevenths. Okay, so C major with a 7, C sus4 with a 7, C sus2 with a 7, C augmented with a 7, augmented major 7, C minor with a major 7, right? C sus2 with a major 7, C Phrygian with a major 7. That's very, very dissonant sound. Really like that. And then you can take those just with that, without even putting flat 7s on these things. Take that and put it over different bass notes, right? So if I have the C major 7 sharp 5 over A gives you an A minor major 9 chord. I was doing this video. I'm in this video with Paul Davids and Adam. It's Paul's video, but he talked about the second chord in Stairway to Heaven. Let's see, am I going to get my video demonetized for this? No, I'm just joking. And it's talking about and then it goes to the second chord, right, which is the notes. What's it go to? An E. So this chord here, I had told Paul, I said it's inverted major 7 sharp 5 chord. And I think he thought that I meant a C major 7 with a G sharp in the bass. It's like, no, it's a C major 7 sharp 5 with a G sharp in the bass, right? It's just this chord. The chord that we just did. Take this G sharp, move it down the octave, and that's the same chord. That's it. It's just an inverted C major 7 sharp 5 chord, right? Being able to recognize that by ear, though, that's kind of an important thing. Like, okay, what is that chord? That's a major 7 sharp 5 in second inversion. So that's the inversion. So in the ear training course, after you learn these things, all these different triads, seventh chords, everything like that, then we do inversions, right? You learn to recognize a chord in root position, first inversion, second inversion, right? And if there's notes added to it, they'll work in the same way. This is C minor, add 9, right? So those are inverted minor add 9 chords, right? So every chord structure can be inverted. Just take the lowest note, move it up the octave, or take the highest note, move it down the octave. Very simple. But you need to be able to recognize it by ear. Okay, next question. How much music theory do you use while playing? I guess you're asking me that. Is it muscle memory? Well, the muscle memory part comes from learning where your scales are, right? So you learn scale fingerings and things like that. But ideally what you're doing is you're playing the notes, and you're hearing, before you're playing, you're hearing the notes that you want to go to. And you do that by training your ear to recognize intervals, ascending and descending. And then it just becomes second nature. A pro player can just play and without making mistakes because they know what intervals, when they're singing in their head, whatever melody they're singing, they're just playing those notes. They're playing those intervals. That just is from practice, honestly. That's from continued practice. Now, you have to know music theory in order to... You don't need to know music theory. People go their whole careers and don't know anything about music theory, and they just play what sounds good to their ear. But the more sophisticated music gets, if you're trying to explain something like what the second chord of Stairway to Heaven is, you have to understand what inversions are and things like that. And that is really that's something that you have to learn. This is a agreed upon language that on what things are called, right? A C chord or a C add 9 or a C sus4, whatever it is, right? These are important things to know. If you have to figure out what key you're in, let's say you got a chord progression that's going, even if it's a simple thing, right? If I have D, F, C, D, what scales do you play over that? D, F, C, D, right? D, then F, C, D. Well, what you can play, what Peter Frampton played on here, is he played this D mixolydian, and then he would change it when you go F to C, right? So D mixolydian would be the 5 chord in what key? Patrick?
Sorry, what?
See, he's not even... These guys don't even pay attention.
I was reading comments.
So you go from D mixolydian. So what Peter would do is go from like mixolydian, and then he would go to Dorian, like D Dorian. That's the way he would think of it. The fingerings that he would play over the next 2 chords. It would give you F Lydian and C major on there. And you come back. He used the blues scale as well. He'd mix... On the D7 chord, he mixed the blues scale in with the mixolydian mode. Okay? This is where theory is really cool. Now, could you play basically just D minor pentatonic over that? Yes. But it wouldn't sound that good. And I'll tell you why. When Jimmy Page plays on Stairway to Heaven, which is simply A minor, G, F, G, A minor, right? Jimmy Page adds in F many times, probably 4 times in the solo. And the reason he adds it in is because it just gets boring after a while playing the same A minor pentatonic over the same progression. Right at the end of the first phrase, he lands at first phrase on the note F because he's on the F major 7 chord. And it's like, oh, because Jimmy Page was a session guy. When people think, oh, people don't know this stuff, it's like, yeah, Jimmy Page is a session player. He knew this stuff. John Paul Jones is a professional arranger. Not only does John Paul Jones know how to read music incredibly well, but he can write orchestrations out. He orchestrated the 4-part recorder thing in Stairway to Heaven. That's actually all written out, for sure. And he just played it and read it. So, so music theory is really important, even with the biggest rock bands in the world. People like Led Zeppelin, biggest rock band of all time, pretty much, right? 2 of the guys in the band were pro session guys. That's how Jimmy knew John Paul Jones. Okay, so he definitely knew that. John Paul Jones did orchestrations and things for other huge records too. Plenty of records over time. Next thing, okay, I'm trying to go as fast as I can here. Somebody asked about enclosures, how to use enclosures. I have a cool Instagram video. For those of you that don't follow me on Instagram, follow me at rickbeato1 on Instagram. It's really, I got tons of guitar videos, and I have one of my biggest ones was in enclosures. And this is all in my Beato book, RB500. You want to support the channel and understand what I'm talking about in these videos? Get my 700-page PDF bundle, and you will know what I'm talking about. Enclosures, though. Let's say you have a D Dorian scale. Let's say I want to surround the root of the chord. So that would be one way of doing enclosures. So what I did here, that's called like a double. We used to call that double chromatic enclosure. So I start down a whole step, up a whole step above the D. There's the target note, and then you close in with that minor second into the tonic there. But I started on A. Okay, you could also go. That could be an enclosure, right? That could be an enclosure too. Once again, this is the target note. So I'm going a half step below it, up a half step, up a half step above. That could be another way. Enclosures are used in jazz, or they can be used in rock. I, use what I call diatonic enclosures. That could be an enclosure. Those are really, really great sounds. But if you hear, when your bebop players play that, right? If you're playing over D Dorian, you hear those kind of lines all the time in jazz, right? Those type of enclosures. It's a great question, though. Okay. Let's see here. How to use augmented chords. Oh man, how to use X cells. I thought it was a great question. Okay, what is an X cell? An X cell is a device used in modern classical music. It came about in the 1940s or so. Bartók would use X cells. Schoenberg, Berg, Webern would use X cells. X cell is simply 4 consecutive chromatic notes, let's say, in a chord. Okay, so let's say you've got B, C, C sharp, D. Those are 4 consecutive ones. Now, this would be an X cell. Now, this if you have the slasher chord from Psycho, the shower scene, that's an X cell. But they, like a great, let me give you an example. This could be an X cell. You could do something like this. This. That could be an X cell. Or, so I've got B, C, C sharp, D. That could be an X cell right there. That's a really cool spacing of those 4 notes. It doesn't have to be this. That's an X cell, but I can take any of the notes. Let's say I take C, put it down the octave. The spacing is not great on that. Maybe take D and put that down here. It's kind of an interesting spacing. But I think that the major 7s and minor 9s actually have nicer spacings in them. That's cool, or this. Once again, being able to understand and hear these things, you don't have to have perfect pitch to identify an X cell. You just have to have a really good sense of relative pitch, being able to recognize intervals. This, I know that when I hear it, that's a minor 9. As soon as I hear that, and then if I hear this, I know that's a minor 9 too, right? Or that, I know that that's a major 7th interval. So I hear a minor 9, major 7, or minor 9, minor 9, minor 9, right? So being able to recognize these things, or if I hear them like that, I can hear all that. Okay. Couple real quick questions here on Super Chat. How does someone sing with vibrato? I want to learn. Probably there's probably a good YouTube video on that. You have to have a really flexible voice to sing with vibrato. It takes a lot of practice. Braun says, could you elaborate on the difference between I can't even read that here. Interpolation and ultrapolation of notes. I could, but not in the next 30 seconds. Let's see. Great work. Also, this is from Christoph. Is there any textbook you could recommend to get the textbook you could recommend to get the basics right? Beato book. Was that a trick question or what? That wasn't a setup, I swear. RB500 discount code. I have a lot of old videos on my channel, by the way, that deal with a lot of these more advanced theory questions. Okay, I have hundreds of videos on really sophisticated music theory topics that I honestly never went back and remade. They're kind of shaky looking. You know what I mean? I didn't know my editing, but all the content is there. If you search the early videos of my channel beginning in 2016, you'll start to see those. Okay, so the discount code RB500, 60% off my Beato book bundle, 700-page PDF, 40% off my ear training course. You want to have great ears and be able to hear anything and know, I know what that is, I know what that is, I know what that is. That's really, there's a power in knowing what you're hearing, okay? RB500, you guys are awesome. I won't wait 2 weeks before I come on live again. Thank you so much. Got some new videos coming out this week. You guys are great. We'll see you later.